To most, it was not a name at all. It was a warning. A whispered curse passed through the void between stars. On military outposts, her name was used like an alarm siren, a sound that made hardened soldiers tense and look to the shadows. To civilian worlds, it was the word parents hissed to frighten unruly children into obedience. Sleep, or Zariah will come for you. She had been born on the death world of Rindelta, a planet so violent that even automated probes often failed to return intact. Its jungles dripped with venom, its skies were cut by razor-winged predators, and its storms came with lightning that split entire ridgelines in two. Life survived there only through strength and savagery, and the Vryn embodied both, even among them. Zariah was something else. She grew to over 3 meters tall, her body sheathed in overlapping obsidian scales that could deflect plasma fire. Her claws curved like carved black glass, each as long as a human forearm. Twin ridges of bony spines swept back from her skull, and her eyes, those eyes burned with molten gold, glowing faintly even in pitch darkness. 2 alien eyes, she resembled not a person, but an apex predator wrapped in a humanoid silhouette. Yet Zariah had not sought the life she was given. She had been raised in the clan pits of Rindelta, where younglings were taught to hunt, fight, and endure agony before they learned language. Survival was the only virtue her world understood. Weakness meant death, and death meant dishonor to the clan. So when war came to their star system, Zariah had been offered a choice that was no choice at all: fight for the Empire, or die unproven. She fought. She conquered. She survived. Her legend was forged on the broken hulls of orbital battleships and the glassed soil of colonies. Armies collapsed before her. Entire companies of armored mechs had been ripped apart by her claws. Her presence alone made admirals rethink battle plans. The galaxy gave her many names: Slaughterfang, Nightclaw. The Wraith of Rinbut, the one that endured, was the one that cut deepest. The beast of Rindelta. Then the Vryn Empire fell. It did not collapse in glorious battle. It simply imploded from within, eaten away by civil war, rebellion, and famine. Their death-world resilience could not withstand the slow strangling of supply lines. Zariah fought to the bitter end, until she was the last of her unit standing on a blackened field. Her body soaked in enemy and ally blood alike. The victors did not kill her. They feared martyring her more than they feared her claws. So they shackled her in neutron chains, injected her with sedatives meant for megafauna, and paraded her as a trophy through the corridors of their ships. Her final destination was the Galactic Menagerie, prison museum where the galaxy's dangerous anomalies were locked away, both for study and spectacle. There she was given a cell of transparent alloy, 5 meters by 5, and nothing else but rations delivered through a dispenser slot. Visitors came to stare. They arrived in groups, dressed in fine silks or stiff uniforms, their faces pressed close to the force field as they spoke of her like she was an artifact or a weapon on display. "She's not even sentient," one whispered, clutching a datapad. "More beast than being," another muttered. "She belongs in a cage. It's safer for all of us." Zariah sat silently on the cold alloy floor, her back against the wall, her gaze lowered. Her claws were folded across her chest like crossed blades. She did not move when they jeered. She did not snarl or roar, or display the monstrous rage they expected. They wanted a beast, but Zariah had nothing left to give them. Her war was over. Her clan was gone. The fire that once roared in her heart had been buried beneath years of chains, sedation, and silence. The truth no one cared to see was that Zariah had never been cruel. She had never sought war or death. She had only ever obeyed the code of her world: survive or be forgotten. And now, with nothing left to survive for, she had gone quiet. The Galactic Menagerie had a problem. Though no one wanted to admit it, Zariah would not break. Every other creature confined there eventually did. Predators from burning worlds, telepathic horrors from the void, engineered war beasts, all had succumbed to despair or madness in the sterile glass cages. They raged, then withered. They lashed out, then collapsed inward. The overseers took this as proof that confinement worked, that no will could resist the slow suffocation of isolation. But Zariah did not rage. She did not cry, roar, or plead. She simply endured day after day, year after year. She sat in her enclosure like an ancient statue carved from black stone. She ate when rations arrived, drank when water came, and otherwise did not move. Her golden eyes tracked everything silently and without emotion. It's like twin suns locked in a frozen sky. It unnerved even the guards. So the menagerie devised a plan. If they could not break her, perhaps they could prove her inhumanity by showing she was incapable of connection. They would assign a new caretaker, someone from one of the softer species. Someone almost absurdly unlike her, and see if she reacted at all. When she didn't, they could declare her irredeemably beast-like and end the debate about her sentience. They chose a human. His name was Elias Rook. When he arrived, the guards snickered quietly among themselves. He was small by galactic standards, barely reaching Ziria's chest in height. His frame was wiry, his dark hair tied back at his neck, and he carried a calm, steady presence that seemed almost out of place in the humming corridors of the menagerie. He didn't seem impressed by the shimmering energy barriers or the predator warning signs. He didn't ask about hazard pay or extra weapons. When the senior warden handed him Ziria's thick dossier pages detailing every confirmed kill, every massacre, every horrifying act of strength, Elias read it in silence. Then he closed the file and simply said, "When do I meet her?" The warden frowned. "You mean observe her? You won't be entering the enclosure. The barrier stays up at all times." "Of course," Elias replied, his voice level. "I just want to see her." The first meeting was brief. The observation deck hummed softly as Elias approached the transparent alloy wall. Beyond it, Zariah sat motionless on the cold floor, her massive body folded in stillness. Her golden eyes flicked up at the sound of footsteps, then settled on him like twin slivers of molten sun. She didn't move otherwise. Elias stood there quietly, studying her not with fear or revulsion, but with the kind of measured curiosity one might give to a sleeping hurricane. He made no notes, no remarks. He didn't recoil or widen his eyes like so many others had. "She's watching you," one of the guards muttered from the shadows behind him. Elias didn't look back. "Good," he said softly. "That means she's still here." He visited again the next day, and the day after that, and the one after that. He never spoke to her at first. He only tended her enclosure, ensuring the rations were warm instead of cold bricks, adjusting the water temperature, cleaning the floor with methodical precision. Sometimes he hummed softly under his breath, tuneless and calm. Zariah never responded, not with words, not with movement, but her eyes always followed him, tracking each motion. The other caretakers noticed, and it unsettled them. "Why hasn't she attacked the barrier when he's near it?" One whispered, "Why does she watch him like that?" Another asked, "She's planning something," the warden insisted. Mark my words, but Elias was not watching for danger. He was looking for signs of life. And one evening, he found it. He had just finished cleaning when something caught his eye near the back of the enclosure. At first, he thought it was a crack in the flooring, but when he knelt closer, he saw it for what it was. A delicate pattern scratched into the alloy with the tip of a claw. Not random marked symbols. Flowing, curved shapes, woven like strands of music. Elias crouched near the barrier, close enough that the glow from her eyes reflected faintly in his own. "You made this?" he asked quietly. For a long moment, Zariah did not move. The air hung still, then her gaze met his. Slowly, so slowly, he almost doubted it. She inclined her massive head just enough to be unmistakable. Elias felt a small, fierce spark of triumph. Not fear, not pity. Just a glimmer of hope. The guards behind him whispered in disbelief. It was the first voluntary response anyone had seen from Zariah in 9 years. Instead of the usual ration crates and sanitation tools, he carried a small, scuffed datapad cradled in both hands. He passed through the security scan with it, ignoring the puzzled look the guards gave him. The device was ancient by galactic standards, one of humanity's first off-world models, barely functional by modern standards. Its screen was dim, its casing patched with tape, and its battery half-dead. But it contained something no other device in the menagerie did. Beauty Elias set it gently against the transparent barrier, where the glow could reach through to Ziria's side. She sat in her usual crouched posture, head bowed, golden eyes dim. But when the soft light flickered across the cold alloy floor, her gaze rose, slow and wary. "I thought you might like to see these," Elias said softly.
There.
"Beautiful." He tapped the pad. The screen flickered to life, showing a series of images. Oceans, endless and blue, cresting under a golden sun. Vast forests, their leaves shimmering emerald as the wind rippled through them. Towering mountains capped with snow, their peaks catching the glow of a sunrise. Paintings of distant worlds, sculptures of delicate spirals and curves, and creatures in shapes so graceful they seemed carved from dreams. The gallery was old, pieced together from human art archives and photographs of planets no longer even inhabited. Some were blurry, some were faded. But they were alive. Ziria stared. For a long while, she didn't move. Her molten eyes flicked from one image to the next, unblinking, as though afraid the vision would vanish if she looked away. Then, almost imperceptibly, she shifted her weight forward. One massive claw lifted from the floor and extended until it touched the barrier's inner surface with the gentlest scrape. The sound was soft but sharp enough to make the guards tense and reach for their weapons. Elias did not move. He only watched her, calm as ever, a faint smile warming his features. "You've seen nothing like these before, have you?" Ziria's claw lingered against the image of a small bird with wings outstretched in mid-flight, feathers blurred with motion. The molten glow in her eyes brightened faintly, like embers stirred to life. Then, in a voice like broken stone, shifting for the first time in years, she spoke. "Ziria." The sound was deep, guttural, yet strangely soft. Her name, given shape after nearly a decade of silence. Elise's breath caught. The guards behind him swore softly in shock. "You," he said gently. "That's your name?" She nodded once, a small, solemn tilt of her massive head. It was the first word anyone had heard her speak in 9 years. From that moment, everything began to change. Elias came every day now, always with something new. Sometimes more images. Sometimes recordings of sound, rainfall, laughter, wind chimes, ocean surf. He would sit cross-legged on the cold floor just outside her enclosure, the barrier glowing faintly between them, and speak in his low, calm voice. He told her about Earth, about the smell of pine forests after rain, about city lights reflected in puddles on cracked pavement, about old human myths of monsters who were not evil, only misunderstood. Dragons who guarded treasure, leviathans who protected the depths, wolves who raised lost children. Ziria listened. She began to answer in single words, then short phrases, then halting sentences in a voice that rumbled through the floor. She told him about the black glass cliffs of Rindelta, sharp enough to slice through steel, about the glowing fungal forests that lit the nights in colors not found in any spectrum humans could name, about the sky serpents who rode the planet's constant storms like ribbons of lightning. Her words were slow at first, like an ancient machine creaking to life. But there was a rhythm buried in them, a poetry born from long-buried memory. And then one day, she laughed. The usual echo of boots on metal had faded hours ago, replaced by the low hum of force fields and the distant thrum of power conduits. Most caretakers had gone home. The rest were slumped in their offices, drifting through the dull fatigue that came with endless routine. But Elias stayed. He sat, cross-legged on the cold floor outside Ziria's enclosure, the glow from the barrier casting faint silver halos along the edges of his face. On the other side of the transparent wall, Ziria lay curled on the alloy tiles, her massive body coiled like a slumbering dragon, except she wasn't sleeping. Her molten gold eyes glimmered in the dim light, fixed on him with quiet patience. She hadn't spoken in hours, and neither had he. They had spent the evening in silence, simply existing in each other's presence as if words might shatter, something delicate growing in the space between them. On the floor between them lay the old datapad, playing a soft sequence of human music. It was a gentle piano melody, slow and haunting. Drifting through the empty corridor like sunlight through dust, Elias closed his eyes for a moment, letting the sound settle in his chest. Then he spoke, his voice low and steady. "Do you know," he murmured, "when I first came here, they told me not to look into your eyes?" Ziria's head tilted slightly, spines along her skull catching the pale light. "They said," Elias continued, "that predators from death worlds use eye contact as a challenge, that if I stared too long, you'd see it as defiance." He opened his eyes again, meeting her molten gaze. "But I didn't see a predator." Her claws flexed faintly against the floor. It's not in threat, but in the slow, unconscious way someone flexes their hands when listening closely. "I saw sadness," he said softly, like someone who had been left behind. For a long while, there was no response. The music ticked on, each note like falling rain. Then Ziria's deep voice rumbled through the air, soft as distant thunder. "Everyone leaves. The fallen." Her words were halting but clear. It was the most personal thing she had ever said. Ilias's heart tightened. He thought of the countless reports, the classified records of the Varin Empire's fall. She had lost not only her people, but her place, her purpose, her entire world. And now the galaxy called her beast, not even bothering to speak her name. He leaned closer to the barrier, resting his hand gently against the cold surface. "Not everyone," he whispered. Ziria's golden eyes flicked to his hand.
"Ow."
Then back to his face. Her massive body shifted, slowly, until she rose to a crouch and moved closer. Each movement was careful, deliberate. She stopped just a breath from the barrier. The transparent alloy separated them by only a few centimeters now. And for the first time, Elias truly saw her, not as the galaxy saw her. Not as the stories painted her, but as she was. The pattern of her obsidian black scales was intricate and beautiful, flowing like carved glass. Her eyes, once described as predatory fire, seemed instead like twin suns captured behind tears. Her face, fierce and sharp-edged, held something terribly, achingly human. Loneliness. She lowered her head until her forehead almost touched the barrier opposite. His, and in the hush between piano notes, Elias whispered the word that shattered her world. Beautiful. The sound was softer than the hum of the barrier. It was barely breath, yet it hit her like thunder. Zariah froze. Her pupils dilated, molten gold swallowing the thin ring of black around them. Her breath caught in a sudden, trembling rasp. She had been called monster, killer, nightmare, weapon, beast, but never that word. Never beautiful. Something deep inside her shifted. Her claws, which could rip battle mechs apart, gently lifted and touched the barrier where his hand rested. The alloy trembled faintly under her massive weight, but her touch was feather-light, a gesture of wonder, not threat. Her voice came almost a whisper. "Say it again?" Ilias's eyes softened. He pressed his palm more firmly to the cold wall and nodded once. Beautiful. Where there had once been roaring jeers and bloodthirsty cries, there was now only the whisper of the wind through the shattered gates. Dust drifted slowly down through shafts of light from the cracked dome above, settling on the crumbled ruins of what had been the grandest spectacle on Rykara. And at the heart of it, two figures stood motionless, yet utterly alive. Kale's hand still rested gently on Gira's cheek. His voice, soft, human, fragile, still seemed to echo in her ears. Beautiful. The word hung there, heavier than any blade, more powerful than any energy cannon. It was not a war cry or a victory chant. It was a simple truth, and it had torn down walls stronger than iron. Gira stood trembling. Her talons, once soaked in battle's carnage, hung limp at her sides. The armor that had been welded to her form to make her into a monster was cracked and falling away, plates sliding off like pieces of a shattered shell. For the first time in her memory, she did not feel like a weapon. She felt Seen all her life, she had been forged to be their beast. That was her identity, her cage, her curse. She had accepted it because no other path had ever been offered. But this fragile human, this soft-skinned, breakable creature had walked through the fire and ruin of her rage and simply whispered what no one had ever dared, that she was more than what they had made her. Something inside her broke, and something far older awoke. Above them, the grand viewing platform trembled as the overseers looked down in horror. Their perfect show was crumbling. The crowd of thousands that had once screamed for blood now stared, stunned into silence, unsure if what they were witnessing was defiance or a miracle. They are embracing, one overseer stammered, voice quivering. The beast is crying? Indeed, twin trails of molten gold streaked down Jira's scaled face, sizzling as they struck the stone floor. She could not stop them. She didn't want to. Kale slowly lowered his hand and, without fear, stepped even closer until their foreheads touched. "I see you," he whispered, softer this time. "Not a weapon. Not a monster. Just you." Gira closed her eyes, and for the first time in her life, the silence in her mind wasn't terrifying. It was peace. Then, in a single motion that left the audience gasping, she turned away from him and faced the overseer's box. Her wings flared wide, their torn membranes glowing faintly with inner fire, but her claws did not raise. Her voice, deep and resonant like an earthquake, carried through the arena. "I will fight no more." The words slammed into the overseers like a physical blow. Panic rippled through them. This was impossible. Beasts did not speak without command, let alone refuse. "She's broken her bindings," shouted one. "She's choosing," whispered another, awestruck. Gira turned her gaze to Kale. "Will they kill me for this?" Kale's lips curved into the faintest smile. "They'll try." She laughed, a sound raw and bright and alive, not the hollow mechanical snarl they had built into her. It rolled across the arena, and for the first time, the crowd didn't flinch. Many smiled. Some even cheered the overseers. Realizing the spectacle was slipping from their control, ordered the enforcers forward. Armored soldiers flooded the arena floor, weapons blazing, but they did not reach her. Because Gira moved it, as a beast, not as a weapon, but as herself. She tore the chains from her own spine, ripping out the control nodes as sparks arced and circuits screamed. The ground quaked as she leaped skyward, wings unfurling in a surge of fire and wind. Kale leaped after her, and for an impossible moment, she caught him mid-air. They soared together, breaking through the shattered dome into the open sky beyond. The arena vanished beneath them, shrinking into insignificance as they rose above the clouds. The crowd would speak of that moment for generations. The beast, who became more than a beast. And the fragile human who dared call her beautiful, high above the world. Wind streaming through her wings, Gira looked at Kale, cradled gently against her chest. "Where do we go now?" "Anywhere," Kale said simply, gazing up at her with wonder. "Somewhere you can just be." Her heart ached. Her heart sang. She had no name for this feeling.